The Crusades. A time of heroes, a time of honor, a time of bloodshed. It was during these times that a new leader came to power in Egypt. His name was Salah ad-Din. He would be the spark that would ignite the Middle East in decades of turmoil.
Storm clouds gather over Europe. Mistrust and rivalries between realms threaten to break and flood the world in a tide of total war.
A great military and charismatic leader named Salah ad-Din has united the Muslims of the Middle East against the Christian interlopers. The defenders of Jerusalem were ragtag, however they were the ones behind the walls. The Saracen horde would be hard-pressed to breach the walls, and even if they did, they would still have to face off against some of the awesome technology of the Europeans, who had such weapons as the Claymore.
The Claymore, pinnacle of European killing technology. It is a very heavy weapon with a very long and wide-set blade. Contrary to popular belief, it was not sharpened. The Claymore at no point in time was used as a slashing weapon. Typically, it was used with its extreme weight to bash and hack your enemies into the ground. In history, knights who volunteered to carry claymores would receive double pay, because in battles they would be expected to charge spear walls and shield formations in a suicide mission to clear the way for the rest of the foot troops.
The Claymore. Against the Saracens, it proved brutally effective.
Dead. Pray our warriors' hearts fill with thirst for vengeance and not despair.
Also present in the Crusades was the use of light cavalry, the bane of archers. They would charge in at a gallop and impale the enemies on their spears.
The spear, by far the most common weapon you would see if you went into the Middle East during the Crusades. Both sides used it as a very defensive weapon. Infantry would be placed carrying spears on the flanks of armies to protect from cavalry charges, or in front of the archers to protect them from troop movements. The spear's shafts would be dug into the ground and lean forward at an angle. Now, with dozens of soldiers to the left and right of me, making a porcupine-like wall, not very many people are willing to charge, let alone charge right through one of these. Knights would also use them on horseback for a very effective cavalry charge. Let's just say, when you get a ton of muscle and steel coming straight towards you in this point, there's no armor that can stop it.
All these forces combined would make the use of light cavalry a devastating force on the battlefield.
our disgrace. This time we will win the battle, or we will taste ashes instead of victory.
The mainstay of the Christian army was the knight, who often wielded a short sword and shield in battle.
Standard European light infantry would carry a small defensive shield. It was typically not very large, as very few people wanted to cart a huge shield around throughout the desert. Most shields were emblazoned with their users' either family crest or personal crest of war. Paired with the shield, the European foot soldiers would often wield a short or a long blade. They were often very simple weapons, just a standard crossguard and pommel typically used for bashing when getting into close quarters. The standard tactic for one of these is several knights would line up in a row with their shields out front, and when the enemy got close enough, short stabbing motions with the sword.
This combination of shield and sword proved an effective weapon against the Saracens. Often present in Muslim armies was the use of a small battle axe.
The axe was also used by the Europeans, although to somewhat a lesser extent, and used smaller blades. The axe, paired with the sharp blade and a heavy weight at the end of a long shaft, would give it a very nice swinging motion, able to cleave through most types of armor. And for heavy plate mail, and that of which the axe could not pierce, they were often accompanied by a pick head at the rear of the blade to use on fallen knights. One of the most common tactics for the axe would be to catch the tops of shields and weapons in the dead zone, pulling them down and offering a second strike at one's opponent.
This Muslim axe, combined with the ability to pull down a Christian shield and follow it up with a quick strike, proved brutally effective in battle. The night of the bombardment, Salah ad-Din orders his trebuchets to open fire on the city of Jerusalem. As flaming debris flies overhead, the Christians can do nothing but wait. The trebuchet, one of the mightiest siege engines of the time, it was often employed to breach walls from long distances. Salah ad-Din has put them to good use by bombarding the Christian walls and staying out of return fire range. Christians know that even if they are to endure this onslaught, at dawn the Muslims will come, and they will have to fight in grueling hand-to-hand combat and face the enemies of their faith. On the second day of the siege, Salah ad-Din ordered his siege towers forward. Knowing that if the siege towers to reach the walls, the Christians unleashed their fiery rage upon the Muslims below.
Our men are under attack. We must act now. Siege towers are at the walls. Our men are under attack. We need to act. The battering ram is in place. It will not be long before our enemy's defenses fall.
Many of the siege towers of the Muslim force caught on fire due to the Christians' fiery bombardment, and many did not make it to the walls.
They think that just by destroying our siege towers they will know victory? Our men are under attack. We must act now.
However, the Muslims were not relying on siege towers alone. They also had a battering ram amongst them that would attempt to pierce the gate. Some Muslim siege towers actually made it to the walls, in which case they would come off the siege tower and fight hand-to-hand on top of the walls in an attempt to capture it and work their way towards the gatehouse. What they did not expect to find, however, were several Christian knight units waiting for them. Despite continued fighting throughout the day, the Muslims just could not penetrate the Christian walls. Despite all the Muslims' efforts, they just could not break through the Christian defenses. However, there were side effects to this prolonged siege. Starvation was beginning to set in, and so was the desperation that the siege would never be lifted. So the Christians conferred with Salah ad-Din and allowed for a peaceful surrender of the city to him. This proved to land Jerusalem into Muslim hands and would be the spark for the Third Crusade. After the devastating Battle of Jerusalem, Pope Innocent III decided that revenge would be necessary to punish the Muslim heretics. He decided that there would be 3 major leaders from each of the 3 major European powers: England, France, and the Holy Roman Empire. Richard the Lionheart of England sailed south through the English Channel and down around the Strait of Gibraltar towards the Holy Land. Meanwhile, Philip II marched down from Paris to the southern coast of France, where he then boarded several boats and made his way to the Holy Land and joined up with Richard. Frederick Barbarossa went by land through the desert of the Byzantine Empire. Unfortunately, en route, he died, and most of his men deserted, leaving only a handful to continue on to the Holy Land. Philip, after losing a minor skirmish and hearing of Frederick's death, decided that this wasn't worth it and went back to France. Richard stayed, and after several closely fought battles, decided with Salah ad-Din that while the Holy Land would remain under Muslim control, the Christians would still be allowed to visit and worship as they pleased.